Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
The question at the table today is, when is it illegal to pray?
A shacket. It's Travis Kelce's wearing them all the time when he's with, what's her name? Taylor Swift.
What are you talking?
A shacket is the latest trend. It is half jacket, half shirt, very much similar to like the leisure suit, only a little bit more rugged. And I actually got one at Lululemon, and
I truly thought I would never live long enough to see the leisure suit come back. They used to be polyester with big double pockets. Oh, man, this is more than I can endure.
You're always crisp and buttoned up, so I know you'll never wear a shacket.
The Nehru jacket that the Beatles brought forward. And speaking of England, let's talk about a recent story. And it's not a new story. It's been happening and happening and happening again. This is one of these things that when you tell people about, they just look at you and say, like, you know, what, are you out of your mind? There's no way in the world that can happen anywhere in a free country.
That's some kind of report from a very extreme media outlet. That's not really it's really happening.
It is really, really happening. And what's really happening in the United Kingdom is they now have these safe space quiet zones, so to speak, in front of abortion facilities. And the way that the zone works is real simple. You can't walk there and stop for any reason. You can't display anything that has to do with a pro-life message whatsoever. You can't park anywhere near the facility if you have a pro-life bumper sticker on your car. This is true. And there are people who've been arrested over and over and over again. There's one particular woman, Isabel Vaughn Spruce. This woman has been through an amazing amount of trouble over there. They call them buffer zones, but the bottom line is they are anti-free speech zones. You may not express any opinion that disagrees with the abortion facility. Now, the abortion facility may only be renting. They may not own the property. They certainly don't own the sidewalks in front of it. They don't own the streets in front of it. But the government's created a safe zone. And Isabel Vaughn Spruce has been arrested 3 times and interrogated for walking in front of a clinic, stopping silently, and then walking on. And she's been interrogated. She's been forced to incriminate herself.
No sign.
Nothing.
No sign. No chant.
Nothing.
No bumper sticker. No nothing. Now she's just silently walking by. And they, of course, because she's praying, right?
Now, in the United States, we have a law called the FACE law, which is pretty much the same kind of thing. But it hasn't been so radically enforced. But we know of instances, one right in Franklin, Tennessee, where there was a gay pride event and people showed up, and one of them was wearing a shirt that had the word Jesus, the name Jesus on his shirt. That person was told they had to leave a public park because it had been rented to a gay pride event, and that person was arrested for refusing to leave or refusing to take off their shirt and change their shirt. They weren't saying a word. They were wearing an item of clothing on public property.
Now, that wasn't in Germany in 1940. That wasn't in England in 2023. That was where?
It was the center of the evangelical political universe, Franklin, Tennessee. There it was, right where all those wonderful Christian artists live, and everyone's supposed to be safe, right there. Michael, several years ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I had a guest with me, and we did an evening walk around some of the large monuments in the different buildings downtown. And so we walked across the front of the Supreme Court building because we've been to the Supreme Court. We've done cases there. And so I walked us, and while we were there, I said, let's stop for 10 seconds and just say a prayer. We stopped, and Michael, within 9 seconds, the Capitol Police said to us, please move on. No one is allowed to stand in front of this building. You're not permitted to stand in front of the building. I said, I can't stand here as a citizen and say a prayer for the members of this court. Move on, sir, or you'll be arrested immediately. This is America. Now, what's interesting about this is it's also by design. One of the things about the radical progressives who believe in the United States, actually, it's the utopian states of America. That's their belief. or the United States of Utopia, one way or the other. But the utopian states of America people believe that if just the really intelligent folks and the really awakened, bright, enlightened people could get control, then they could fix all the problems. And anybody who didn't like it, they'll just get rid of, one way or the other. They'll silence you. They'll push you away. They'll make you leave the country. This is the utopian universe, which is it's a utopia for them and nobody else. There's no sense of reciprocal, even human rights.
I was just going to ask you, do we have these buffer zones in England for other things? Did we have these buffer zones in Ferguson and, everywhere where we had rioting and looting and burning of cop cars and attacking of police stations? There were no buffer zones there, were there?
No. And so this is a part of the left's agenda. And we're not talking about radical extremism here. We're talking about the United Kingdom and a woman walking by saying a prayer. We're talking about people walking in front of abortion clinics in the United States and being stopped or arrested. We're talking about going to a public park as a tax-paying citizen that paid for that park and being told you have to leave because you have the wrong shirt on. We're talking about not being able to walk in front of the Capitol or, in fact, here's the thing. Most people don't know this because they haven't been to Washington for a while. In the old days, you could walk to Washington, D.C. You could walk up the steps of the Capitol, and you could go into, as the general public, certain parts of your house.
Can I raise?
Yes.
I just got, it's like when we have these conversations about radio. I started in radio in 1983. So I saw the tail end of the glory of radio before it became corporate and ruined. I was in Washington, D.C., and that would have been about circa 1989, 90. And me and my friend Tom Crumseer, we used to go walk around the Capitol. You could walk through the door. You could look through the windows. When I went to the White House, I was sitting there talking to Britt Hume. He was standing right in front of the White House. There were no barricades.
Do you remember how some of the steps are so worn inside the building?
Yes.
They're actually dented.
Yeah.
This building's been around for a long time. And there was a tour that I took for 3 days. It was a private visit that was ushered in by some of the members that are employed by the U.S. Congress. I spent 3 days in the underground world of the U.S. Congress. Everything they do is underground. They have an underground train system. But now they've stopped any human access into the Capitol. You have to go through an underground visitor center. You may not go into the building unless a member of the United States Congress is going to come and get you and take you into the building, or you are on a scheduled tour. The people of the United States may not walk into their own Congress.
And you better get used to armed Capitol Police, with automatic weapons too, checking you in. I guess we could say, 9/11 changed a lot of things and it became about protection. That's when the big giant things in front of no access near the White House came to be. But, this argument, I mean this genuine. I'm not playing a game here. If the abortion argument was, because nobody seems to know when life begins, so it was about, is it a legal choice? So I'm thinking of this woman in England. Now she's saying, I wasn't even speaking.
Yeah.
I just walked by quietly. I'm praying.
And they would know she was praying unless she confessed that she was
and confessed
doing
it. And so she didn't have any signs. She didn't have any shirt that said anything. She just walked by and prayed, and they stopped her. And then she's like telling the Alliance Defense Fund, never mind, I don't have a right now to counsel. In other words, this isn't about life and, it is life and death, but not like it is with protecting the Capitol and the White House. If this is about them having a legal choice, they have it. But unless you're vested completely only in the death choice, why is everything else off limits, including walking by silently praying? What's the threat?
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
So, and is the threat growing? That's the question. Is the threat growing? I've got right in front of me the copy of the amendment that's going to be voted on in Ohio in a week. They'll be voting on a constitutional amendment that would make Ohio the abortion capital of North America. It is the most liberal, expansive, written by it's the Planned Parenthood wish list, dream list of all time.
All in the name of rights.
and it's all in that now. So let's just say that a state, for example, wanted to create a gambling program. You and I went through this in Tennessee. We've been through it in Florida, been through it in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and let's say they decide they're going to legalize gambling. Well, they maybe in some cases they need a constitutional amendment. So they create a constitutional amendment that will deregulate gambling and enable people to do it. And in some cases, like they did in Ohio, they literally created the actual addresses for the facilities, basically saying that constitutionally a certain group of people were going to get this big largesse. It was the most pathetic monopoly creation in a constitution anybody's ever seen. It was so bad that after it passed by the slimmest of majorities in an off election year, the people then turned around in Ohio and voted a constitutional amendment that said there won't be any more monopolies in the Constitution. But let's just say that the gambling industry decided that we're going to start an amendment. We're going to legalize gambling, and we're going to begin it by saying every individual has the right to gamble at will. Every individual has the right to gamble at will.
So I can steal from you and gamble?
Well, no, it just says you can gamble, and you can gamble at will. All right. So you're creating the human right to gambling. Do you know they created a constitutional amendment and they did not create the right to gambling? They just created the space for the industry to be legal. They didn't create the right. Now, think about that. In Ohio right now, we've got an amendment to the Constitution, and the amendment to that Constitution basically tells us that the first thing that's going to happen is that there is a new right being created. Every individual has a right to make and carry out one's own reproductive decisions, including but not limited to decisions on contraception, fertility treatment, continuing one's own pregnancy, miscarriage care, and abortion. So they're literally creating a brand new right. Now, this is bizarre to create this right. It's never been created before. In other words, they took a piece of paper and pencil and said, I got an idea. Let's create a brand new human right. But wait, there's more. We'll create the right and call it the right to reproductive decisions, to make and carry out reproductive decisions. And we'll list 5. So we're creating 5 new rights with paper and pencil. You have
not limited to, though, right?
Not limited to. But so you have the right to do these things. Okay, that in and of itself is what I would call, it's an existential leap into a legal zone that has no precedence. Nobody's ever done that before. So what are the rules when you go somewhere where the law's never gone? That in and of itself ought to cause people to stop and go, what? But wait, there's more. Get this. And this relates right to our story from Great Britain. The next paragraph says, the state shall not directly or indirectly. All right, so there's 2 directions, right? A direct and an indirect. I got no wiggle room there, okay? Shall not directly or indirectly. I guess that means shall not at all. Burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate against either an individual's voluntary exercise of this right or a person or entity that assists an individual exercising this right. Fast forward. You've got an abortion clinic. Someone is driving past the clinic.
They're just on their way to the bank
with a pro-life bumper sticker on. Automatic camera, you're arrested because you drove a pro-life message through an entity that was assisting someone carrying out their human right, and that put their rights at risk. So you're fined.
And how long before the pro-life license plates that you can get? Your license plate itself is going to get you.
Oh my, if you drive one of those license plates anywhere near a protected facility, boom.
Oh, now I want to go get one.
Now understand, the state shall not directly or indirectly burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate. First off, you can't print pro-life bumper stickers. The state can't, the legislature, that law is overturned. We've all right, but think about this.
This is in England. This is Ohio.
No, this is the piece of legislation that the entire nationwide media is watching. They are literally sending reporters to embedding them into this ballot issue debate because they believe it's the beginning of the 2024 election. So this is how much is being covered. Now, get this. This is great. A person or entity you can't interfere with or indirectly or directly, burden, penalize, prohibit, interfere with, or discriminate against a person or entity that assists an individual exercising this right. So if you and I are on the radio, and this program is heard that you and I are on is heard in Ohio, and we issue a significant investigation, and we do some reporting, and we talk about mistakes that Planned Parenthood's making and things that are going wrong, we could be silenced. We could be arrested because we're interfering with an entity that is helping someone assist in this right. Now, take it one step farther. You've got a kid who is gotten pregnant and with an adult, and it's a very bad situation. And the adult, let's say that they're a coach, a teacher, but by the way, this is pretty much a true story I'm telling you, decides that they want that young girl to get an abortion. They take the young girl to an abortion clinic. The young girl has an abortion. No one can interfere with that process, and the parents cannot be notified.
There's also a paragraph in there that almost gives judge, jury, and everything to the abortionist, right? He's the ultimate say.
Bingo. When you want to talk about late-term abortions, no matter what kind of terms that you're using, about late-term abortions, abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy, late-term abortion, partial birth abortion, there's lots of different terms that describe different procedures. The reality is the unborn child is dead, and it can be up until whatever time the abortionist decides. That's what the law says. Viability is solely defined in constitutional law. This isn't statutory law. This is nothing the legislature can change. A judge gets this book and says, you're the treating physician. You're the abortionist. You decided the child wasn't viable. End of discussion. That's what the law says. Because every word in a constitutional amendment flows from an establishment of a right here. And so all of these words are subset of that right. Michael, this is so far past what England is experiencing right now, so far past what Canada's experiencing right now.
It is.
I mean, it's absolutely.
And they will apply it to other things too. This is all about control and silencing and getting people to comply.
If you can do it on one issue, can't you do it on more issues?
Can you do it on vaccines? Can you do it? I mean, we could go on and on. Let me ask you a question, because you live there part of the year. This would be one that I would say as an American, this has nothing to do with being a Christian, has nothing to do with all the other husband, father, just as an American, I would say, regardless of the issue, this is very un-American. I would see through that. So even if I was pro-choice, I would go, are the voters seeing it that way?
You could not say it any better. It's fundamentally un-American because our rights come from nature and nature's God. That's what the Declaration of Independence says. Our rights come directly from the Creator. Government doesn't create our rights. We create government to protect our rights. The idea that you're going to just take a piece of paper and a pen and create 5 new human rights it's un-American. It is completely un-American. We don't do things that way here.
And how many lawsuits do you think would come from this? So, but I guess that's part of their play, right? They know it's ultimately going to go to the Supreme Court, maybe in a different twist.
Their job is lawfare. That's what they do. And what they're doing is by placing this into a situation where they could get it established as in a right in one major state, then another state will certainly do it. Illinois will adopt the language. California will adopt that language. New York will adopt that language very quickly. The East Coast states of the upper East Coast will adopt this law. Then suddenly you have a nation that has some rights available to people in one state, but rights not available to people in another. And then they'll sue across the state lines, which will bring the federal courts back into it. And now we'll be right back where we were in 1973 with Roe versus Wade. And the court will have the decision to make to strike down all the laws and say, this is now a state right existing law. I mean, they're good.
With 49 states just sitting on the sidelines while this is all playing out, when they should probably be very involved in this campaign, be giving to this campaign, or, they don't realize this is not England. This is going to be America. So where does it stand? What if it fails, where do they go next?
If issue 1, which is being promoted by, in Ohio, promoted by Planned Parenthood in the abortion industry, if they lose, that's a really good question because everyone's been saying they're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win, they're going to win. This is the post-Dobbs reaction. People don't want these restrictions anymore. If they lose, I'm not sure they know what they're going to do. Now, they've got a similar measure teed up in Arizona. They've got another one in Florida. They truly believe that this is one of the major wedge issues they're going to win the next election on. If they lose in Ohio, all of a sudden, they've got to go back to the drawing board because the whole world's going to go, that wasn't a fluke. How did that happen? So it could actually be the watershed that changes everything in this debate. and prove that America is not in a reactionary pro-abortion mindset, but that people are actually starting to think about how must we govern here and what's the best way to keep women safe, to protect the health and life of mothers always, and to also recognize that we're dealing with two people here. There is a human being. This does involve the rights of two persons, not just one.
If this was 1995, if this was 2005, it becomes about the abortion doctor. It becomes about the abortion clinic. But it's not. It's 2023. And I mean, I could ask a simple question. You probably have it on the tip of your tongue. What percentage of abortions now are pharmaceutical?
55%.
Versus procedural. And you know what the future looks like. That's going to change. Yeah. In 8 years, it's going to be 90% pharmaceutical. Why would they pick this battle knowing that that's not where they're going?
Two reasons. One is the reason they put 5 rights, not just one, is because all 5 of those rights that they're creating in Ohio are revenue streams for Planned Parenthood. All you have to do is open their annual reports from 2022 and you see both at the state level and at the federal level, Planned Parenthood makes its money in those 5 areas of providing services. And the money that they make isn't from the client, it's from massive state and federal grants. So what they're doing is they're indemnifying their ability to get profit from state and federal grants and telling that legislatures, you cannot defund us ever again because we're a part of that right. It is a brilliantly clever strategy. And what's remarkable to me, and this is probably going to be another conversation, but what's remarkable
Coffee's brewing.
Remarkable to me is that we have presented this to the Wall Street Journal, to ABC News, to the Associated Press. We have continually presented this data to them.
And they get it, right?
No. Yeah, no.
I'm sorry. I couldn't.
Not only do they not get it, but even if they admit they get it, they will not write about it. That is how pro-abortion they have become. They can even admit privately and behind closed doors that everything we're saying is exactly true, and they will not touch the abortion industry. No one can touch it in the media. And don't you dare stop in front of the Supreme Court or soon an abortion clinic and say a prayer.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.